Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Chullin Daf Dalid, and we're starting 3 lines before the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis at the two dots. And today we're going to continue speaking about Kusim, which, as you may recall from having learned most of Shas, is a group of people whose conversion was somewhat questionable. We learned yesterday that Abaye and Rava seemed to have felt that their conversion was valid. Other of the Amoraim did not like them. That was something we saw in the Gemara toward the bottom of the page. That Rav Ashi said that Kusim Gere Arios him. Okay, starting right here.
Gimel.
Yep, at the bottom. That Rav Ashi held not like Abaye and Rava. Rav Ashi held that they were Gere Arios, saying that they converted out of fear of a lion, which is all representative of a general idea that when a person converts, and even afal that they're converted in from rabbinical court, but at the end of the day, if their conversion has massive ulterior motives, it's very questionable. So that's the sugya we're going to be discussing. Just two housekeeping notes. I'm going to be out of town for Shabbos, so Mirza Hashem will learn as much as we can during the week. But Rabbi Handler will give a shiur. It's not right to not have shiur on Shabbos, but I'm going to try and get him to teach as little as possible, preferably just one blot. But we'll have to see how the week goes. And then also in 1 week from tomorrow night on Tuesday, I have a program that I have to be at and won't be here. There we can just overlearn if I have time, and if not, then Reb Ruvain will. Actually, Rabbi Hamler's not available. We will overlearn, and we won't have shiur next Tuesday. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis have taught us in a brisa, shchitas kusi muteres. This we saw already, that if a kusi does a shchita, the halacha is that the animal is mutter to eat. What's the scenario where we trust a kusi? Ksheisrael omeid al gabav, that's when a Jew is standing over him and watching to ensure that the shchita is kosher. Aval, let's say that the Jew wasn't standing there when the shechita happened, but rather he walked in and found the animal shechted. So then what do? Well, then we have to pressure test the shochet, the kusi shochet. What do? Chotech kezayis v'nosein lo. We cut a kezayis of meat and we give it to the kusi and tell him to eat it. Achlo, if he eats it, then muter lechol mishchitaso. If the kusi is willing to eat it, then we are allowed to eat it. However, v'im lav aser lechol mishchitaso, then we are not allowed to eat it. All of this is part one of the brisa. What is part two of the brisa? Kayotze bo, we have a similar set of halachos in the following case. Matzah biyado dekuria shel tziporim. The Balei Tosfos here say that the word dekuria, the top Tosfos there says it's a sal, that it's some kind of basket. You have a basket filled with birds, right? It's already shechted. So says the Gemara on the top line of Daled Amud Aleph, Kotea rosho shel echad mehen v'nosein lo. We take the head of one animal and we remove it from the body and we give it to the kusi shochet, and we say to him, eat this. Achlo, if he does, muter le'echol mishchitaso, then we trust his shchita and we too are allowed to eat. V'im lav, aser le'echol mishchitaso. And if not, if he doesn't eat the head of this bird, so then the halacha is that we are not allowed to rely on his shchita. Now, as you'll recall from yesterday, when we learned the answers of Abaye and Rava both agreed that a kusi was allowed to do shchita. But Abaye held that it was only true if a Jew was omeid al gabav the whole time, and Rava held that the kusi shchita was valid even if the Jew was only nichnas v'yotze. So now Abaye diek mi resha, Rava diek mi seifa, and now let's go through how each of them drew from the brisa that we just saw. Let's review. The first part of the brisa is shchitas kusi muteres. The second part of the brisa is matzah biyado dekuria. That's also mutter, provided in both cases that the shochet, the kusi, is willing to eat a piece of the shchita. So let's go through them both. 4 lines down on Daled Amud Aleph. Abaya diek mi reisha. What did we learn in the reisha? If you look back, you'll see 2 lines from the bottom. The case was the Yisrael omed al gabav. So Abaye is just reading the Hebrew, and he says aval yotze v'nechnas lo. That's why Abaye yesterday on Daf Gimel, when we learned his approach to the Mishnah, he said that the Jew has to be standing there the whole time. But if it's nichnas v'yotze, that's insufficient. Rava diek mi seifa. Rava, however, doesn't learn from the same part of the brisa. Rava learns from the Seifa, which was the case of the Dekuria Shel Tziporim. Taima de bo mitzvah sheshachat. Aval yotze v'nichnas shapir dami. He says that even in a case scenario of the Dekuria Shel Tziporim, where we find the birds shechted, we're allowed, even under those circumstances, to test the kusi and say, are you willing to eat this meat? And if he is, we use him. But Yotze v'nichnas is much better than finding a basket of shechted chickens. So therefore, Rava says, Shapir Dami, that's how they learn. Now, Ula Abaye Kashya Seifa, according to Abaye, they're not arguing on the same source. They're using different sources. So now we have to cross-examine. Ula Abaye Kashya Seifa, Abaye, who learned from the Resha, from the case of Shchitas Kusi Muteris at the bottom of Gimel Amid Beis, and he learns from there that Omer al Gabav is better than Nichnas v'Yotze. So there the Gemara says that Ulabaye Kasha Seifa. So Amar Lach Yotze v'Nichnas Nami is the same as Ba'u Mitzau Karile. This is unbelievable. We're learning the same exact brisa. Abaye looks at the Resha, at the Seifa of the brisa, and says that if you find the animals already shechted in a basket, Nichnas v'Yotze is not better than that. It's the same as that. They're not staggered, that Ba'u Mitzau Shachar is one level above that is Nichnas v'Yotze. No, Abaye holds their equivalent. And Ule Rava Kasha Resha, according to Rava, where the Resha leaves an inference that one is able to only listen to the kusi if he's omid al gaba, but we don't listen to the other case. So Amar Lach Yotze v'Nichnas Nami omid al gaba dami. Rava holds that omid al gaba v'Nichnas v'Yotze are exactly the same standard of care. The omid al gaba is there for more time. It doesn't matter. We passed a threshold of quality. Nichnas v'Yotze is sufficient. Now let's learn in more detail the second part of the brisa. Kayotze bo, we said that the second part of this brisa that we started with today was that matzah biyado dekuria shel tziparin, that if we find a basket filled with shechted birds, kotea rosha, we take off the head of one animal and we feed it to the kusi. Says the Gemara, Amai, why does this test work? Could you imagine? There's a kusi standing in a room. You walk in the room. The kusi standing there with a bloodied shchita knife and 10 birds shechted in the basket in front of him. So we took the head of one animal and gave it to the kusi and said, make a shahakol. It says the Gemara, leichush, we should be concerned, dilmahahu to have a shachat shapir. Maybe the one of the 10 that you handed him, this is the one that he knows he did well. How can you go eat the other 9? Maybe he recognizes his work. Amar of Menashe, Simin, Machnes, Ismail, Bizacharim, says the Gemara in the name of Rebbe Menashe, don't worry about it. Really, b'machnis and tachas kanafav. The animals are hidden. He doesn't know which animal you picked up. You gave him a chicken's head. He has no idea which animal it is, what color the feathers were, what size. He has no idea. It's just an animal head. Maybe he saw a marking or something, a unique thing on the head of that bird that he cut, that he knew was that one. And if that's true, then maybe the other 9 should still not be kosher. Amar Rav Misharshia, no. There's no way he would recognize this piece of meat because, says the Gemara, Rashi, 12 lines down, the animal was crushed. So we gave him a part of the animal and crushed it, unrecognizably so. Cook it, eat it, and then we can trust you. And then even he can't say, I know it was the one that I did a good job on. Can't say that. Maybe it's different. Maybe because the Bryce was talking about a case of birds, the Dilma Kosavre Kusim Ein Shchita La'of Min Torah. Oh, there's no pasuk in Chumash that talks about Shchita Ba'inof. We know that it's Asr because we have a Gemara, but they don't know that. They have no idea. Says the Gemara, if you're going to say that the Kusim are only going to deal with dinim that are found in Chumash, Shehia Drosa Chaloda Hagrama Ve'ikor, the 5 requirements that we need to do a good job on our Shchita, Miksivan, those aren't found in Chumash. Yet, as we saw earlier in the Masechta, we still trust a Kusi to say that he did the Shchita the right way. and those aren't written. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, no, 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 we're worried about the five. We're worried about the five concerns of Shehiyah, Drasa, Chalada, Hagram, and Ikor. But by birds, yeah, they don't think birds are midoraisa. Says the Gemara, that just doesn't make sense. Ella, it must be that when we talk about drasa chalada v'chule, the five, kevan de achziku behu, once they're makbid on those five, we know they're makbid. Hachanami, here too by birds, we must say the same thing, that kevan de achziku. It must be that they hold stark about that. So now the Gemara is going to dig into that sugya. The achzuk v'lo achzuk b'delo ksiva tanoihi. Whether or not they're makbid on something when it's not written in Chumash, are the kusim makbid on halacha that's not found in Chumash? That is a machlokes tanoim. Tanoihi. This is a machlokes tanoim. We are halfway down on Dalet and Aleph, and the Gemara says the Tanya. We have a brisa from Kedushin and Gittin v'chule also in Psachim. Matzas. Listen to this duplicative language. Matzas kusi muteres. Ve'adam yotzei b'yidei chovasa b'Pesach. Do you see that? That is a waste of real estate. Matzas kusi you're allowed to eat, and you can fulfill the mitzvah deoraisa on Pesach. Extra. Let's get back to that soon. Shita number 2 in this brisa from Kedushin. Rebbe Lazar Oser, no, you're not allowed to eat the matzas kusi. Levi she'ein bekin b'dikduke matzos ki Yisrael. They're not going to be as careful as we are going to be. Whatever, they're not going to wait 18 minutes. I don't know. Whatever the concern is, we don't know from our Gemara what that is. They are not going to be concerned. Rashi tells us what the concern is at 2/3 of the way down. Dibor hamaschil she'ein bekin, ein yodin l'shomra ulahavchin bein siur l'siduk bein hichsifu panav l'lo chsifu panav. They won't know all of these nuances of when there's yeast, when there's not yeast, when it's rising, when it's not. So therefore, we can't trust them. Shita number 2. Rashbag Omer, 5 lines before the wide lines. Kol mitzvah shechziku bakusim harbe medaktikim ba yoser mi Yisrael. What's your problem, Stan? They were more makbid even than the Yidden. That was the kusim. They were fanatical about certain things. When they locked in better than we did.
A lot less.
What?
Did a lot less.
Yeah, 100%. I have when I was in Texas about 12 years ago to do a circumcision, not a Jewish family. I got there. This guy was pashut wearing tzitzis. He had a gantz rabbanish beard. He was wearing tzitzis. His tzitzis were not a beged. They were leather straps with strings, and he put them on each of the 4 loops. There was no beged. He was just wearing strings. He's a guy right? He's more makbid than some yidden. He's late at night. He's wearing tzitzis. He put on a kippah when I got there, covered for the Rav. Covered for the Rav. His wife was an isha tznua, not kedasu kedin. Her hair was covered. I'm serious. Her hair was going. Their girls, the daughters, their hair was covered. Everyone was tznua in that family. They nailed it. He's not a kusi. His mom is straight up a guy. He's a notzri. But there's a tam of that in this case. It's not really a perfect comparison. But anyways, that's what Rashbag holds. We are going to soon ask that the seeming halachic difference between the Tanakam and the Rashbag is nothing, because they both say that the matzahs kusi is kosher. We'll get back to that shortly. These are the 3 shitas. Amar Mar, let's analyze this. The Tanakama said, matzahs kusi muteres, v'adam yotze ba'yodecha vasa bepesach. Says the Gemara, yeah, pshita. We know that you're going to be yotze, the mitzvah of Pesach, when you tell me that the matzahs kusi is muteres. Why say both? Says the Gemara, because there was a havamina here that we didn't have clarity on, so we doubled our language to confirm the way we were thinking. Ma'udatema lo beki'i b'shimur. I might have said that a kusi is not going to be makbid on shimur, which is a concern that they are going to not have in mind l'shem matzas mitzvah. Kamash malon, that they will have that in mind. It's a fascinating zach, right? That if you have a kusi, we're not even so good with mitzvos strichos kavan. You have this kusi who keeps 2.5 mitzvos in chumash. All of a sudden, he's more stark than we are. Havamina that he's not going to have the right mindset. Kamash malon, that he will. So that's the Tanakam. Then we said Rebbe Lazar sover. Rabbi Lazar Oser, excuse me, Lefi she'ein bekin b'dikduke mitzvos kasavar lo beki b'shimur. He disagrees with the Tanakama. The Tanakama holds, and this is why the Tanakama doubled his own language, because they are makbid on shimur. Rabbi Lazar says, no, they're not. These guys are not from. They're not. They're not from. They're not gonna. Could you imagine going to someone's house out in the burbs? I spoke with someone. They said, yeah, we chose to do the second seder at the end of Passover because our family was more available. That Jew is going to make me matzah? Absolutely not. They're not going to make me matzah. They skipped the second Seder and moved it to the last. No judgment. You do your thing. But don't tell me that you can be the person who puts the badatz hashkocha on their matzah. Yeah. So from. So from. So obviously, Rabbi Lazar holds lo b'ki'i b'shima. And Rashbag Omer kol mitzvah shechziku b'akusim harbe medaythi kamba yoser me'Yisrael hainu tanakama. Rashbag, if you're telling me that the kusi is more makbid than the yidden when it comes to dikduke mitzvos, well, the outcome of that is that the matzah is muteres, just like the Tanakama said. So now Shita 1 of the Tanakama and Shita 3 of Rashbag, they're exactly the same. So says the Gemara, two possible answers as to how to explain the difference between the Tanakama and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Ika beinayhu deksiva v'lo ichzikuba. The case where we see a difference between the Tanakama and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is when there is a pasuk in Chumash, but v'lo achzikuba, but the Kusim don't have a habit of doing well with that particular mitzvah. Tanakama savar kevin deksiva afal gav delo achzikuba. The Tanakama holds once it's written in Chumash, the Kusim are going to keep it, even if we don't know that they are really going to keep it. But Rashbag savar, this is behavioral. This is not conceptual. Achzuk in, ilo achzuk lo. Well, I don't care about your theories. Go see what the Kusim are doing. If they're good, they're good. If they're not, they're not. So that could be a difference. Says the Gemara, no, if that's true, Ihachi, then kol mitzvah shechziku bakusim, then the Rashbag's language should have been different. It shouldn't have said kol mitzvah. It should have said im hechziku mibayle, which would have made it flow a little bit smoother. Ella, that's really not what the Tanakama and Rashbag are arguing about. What is the difference between their two shitas? Ella ika beinayu de lo ksiva ve'achzikuba. We're talking about a case where there's a din that's lo ksiva. It's not found in Chumash, but ve'achzikuba. But the Kusim are very stark about it. Tanakama savar, 6 lines, 5 lines from the bottom. Tanakama savar, kevan de lo ksiva. Afal gav de'echziku banami lo. The Tanakama held that if something is not in Chumash, even if they showed good habits around it, we don't listen to them. And Rashbag savar kevan de'achzuk achzuk. We only look at their behaviors. So that is what the Gemara concludes is the difference between the Tanakama and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, again, which is a case where it's a din that's lo ksiva, but they are muchzak in it. So according to the Tanakama, no dice, it's lo ksiva. And according to Rashbag, this is only about their behaviors. If they are makbid on a din d'Rabbanan, then they are makbid on a din d'Rabbanan. Good. Now we're going to go back to a din that we learned yesterday in the Daf, and that was the Shita of Rava, one that's hard for some of us to swallow, which is that a person who is ochel nevelos l'teyavon can be a shochet, and seemingly even lechatchila. Gufa, 4 lines from the bottom, on Daled Amud Aleph. Omar Rava, Yisrael Mumar ochel nevelos l'teyavon, a yid who only through temptation is going to eat nevelos. That guy, bodek sakin v'nosen lo, we check the knife, we give it to him, umuter lechol mishchitasa. So says the Gemara, the question that I certainly felt in my bones. Why in the world would you trust this person? My taima. Says the Gemara, because Rava Svar is like this. Kevan te'ika hetera ve'isura. If you put in front of him Wendy's and Great Chicago, lo shavik hetera v'achil isura. It's not about like, I don't want to keep kosher. It's just about convenience and temptation. If I put these 2 things in front of them, a lahachis nik would eat the Wendy's, and a lateyavon yid would eat the Great Chicago. You wouldn't even blink. This is the halachic svara. Lo shavik hetera v'achal isura. He is not going to ditch the mutter food and just eat the tray food if he's really driven by teyavon. So says the Gemara, Ihachi, if that's true, why are we checking the knife? Right? The setting that we said where we trust a yid who is ochel nevelas l'teyavon is that we're first bodek the sakin. What does that have to do with anything? If he's only nichnas l'teyavon, if he's only going to eat l'teyavon, God, he's holding the knife. Take a look at the knife and see if there's a nick in it. Yachi kilo badak nami. We should still trust the Yisrael ochel mumar ochel l'teyavon. Says the Gemara, mitrach lo tarach. Yeah, you're right. You put those two burgers in front of him. One is tarfus and one is mutter. He'll eat the mutter one. Now all of a sudden you want him to go through a whole process of checking the knife. Mitrach lo tarach. He's not willing to go that far. Amrle Rabban and the Rava, I actually have a beautiful raya for you, Rava, that you're right. That, two parts. Number one, that a mumar ochel nevelas l'teyavon can do shchita. And number two, that the reason is because lo shavik ketera v'achal isura. Tanya de Messiah. Number one, this is a brisa that we have. It's actually a tosefta from Maseches Pesachim. The last line, last few words. Chametzan shel ovrei avera. Let's say I'm not such a frum guy. I kept my chametz, and we know that there's a restriction of chametz she'avar laba Pesach. We'll soon see a discussion of whether or not that's a din deoraisa. What happens to my? I'm an avarian. What happens to my chametz she'avar laba Pesach? Achar ha-Pesach muter miyad. Question bells going off in our heads. How can that be? Mipnei shehein machlifin. We assume that this guy knew about the halacha of chametz she'avar lava Pesach. Pashut that he sold them and swapped it out for mutter. Pashut that he did that. Says the Gemara, Savrua ha-mani. What's our habamina? Well, I might have thought, said the Gemara, top of Dalad Mudbeis, that Rabbi Yehuda he da'amar chametz achar Pesach de'oraisa. Maybe our understanding of this Tosefta from Psachim is that we hold like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that Chametz Achar Pesach, or Chametz She'avar Lava Pesach, as we want to call it, is a din d'oraisa. Vikatani, and what does that Tosefta teach us? That Mibnei Shein Machlifin, that he switched it. Alma, by virtue of the fact that the Brisa says that he switched it, what does that tell us about the mindset of the guy who kept the Chametz She'avar Lava Pesach? It must be Alma, Lo Shaveketera V'achal Isura. He's willing to swap it out. He's not eating it. He didn't want to lose out on all the money, so he kept it. He's never going to eat it. So he was a machlif. He switched with a guy. That might be usher because it's an usher ba'ana, but he's at least not eating that. Says the Gemara, that must be what's going on. And isn't this a beautiful raya? Right? It's a raya for Rava. Rava held lo shava keter ba'achal isura.
Good checking that. Like, how lazy are we assuming this guy to be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That kasha struck me also, that if you say he's too lazy to check the blade, then why now all of a sudden he's going to go find a guy? This is a lot. I mean, certainly today it's a lot more work. You have to find the perfect guy, yeah. So Rabbi Matanki has a custodian in his shul. People. It's not easy. Not when it's stam. Not when it's stam. Absolutely. The Gemara doesn't go into that. Maybe.
Like, very amenable to be helpful, but you have to explain 3 times.
It's hard. Right? It's hard to explain to you.
Owns a lot of people.
Absolutely. So says the Gemara, this is our first approach to the Tosefta, that perhaps we hold like Rabbi Yehuda that it's a din deoraisa. The Brisa says that he was machlif. It must be that he holds lo shava keter v'achal isura, a beautiful raya for Rava. Says the Gemara, Mimai, how do you know that the Tosefta is like Rabbi Yehuda? Perhaps Dilma Rib Shimon he do Amar Chametz Achar Pesach derabanan v'chi mekilinan is only b'derabanan, but b'deoraisa lo mekilinan. Says the Gemara that maybe we hold that really Chametz She'avar Lava Pesach is a din derabanan. And v'chi mekilinan, the only time that there would be a leniency is b'derabanan, but b'deoraisa lo mekilinan. Maybe by Chametz She'avar Lava Pesach, okay, maybe. But by meat, by our case, lo mekilinan, what does that mean? Maybe he would break some rules by Chametz She'avar Lava Pesach, but what about our case of basar? Lo shava ketera v'achal hisura, right? So says the Gemara, v'tehavi nami Reb Shimon. We could even say that it's Reb Shimon. Miktani she'ani omer hechlifu. No, I'm not telling you that it's my feeling that he might switch. It's not a hanacha. It's not an assumption. It's a vados. Mipnei shemachlifin ktani devadai machlifin. B'chi b'drabanan lo shavek keter v'achal isura b'doraisa lo kol sheken. 2 ways to understand the brisa. One like Rabbi Yehuda, one like Rabbi Shimon. But mimanavshach, the first marimakom is a good raya to support the shita of Rava of lo shavek keter v'achal isura. Still, my soul hurts to say that this guy ate at Wendy's for breakfast, and then he went to the Schlachthaus and shechted the chicken, and I have a hard time with it personally. But if the svar of lo shava ketera va'achal isura, because this guy, remember, he's not lahachis. It's just a te'avon. I live in the boonies. What do you want me to do? There's no restaurants. I'm hungry. I don't have a jewel. I don't know. I want chicken. I passed by a Burger King. I got myself a chicken sandwich. Okay. But you put the two in front of me, Pasha, I'll eat the kosher. I'm not anti. I'm just hungry. So all of that is approach number one. The Gemara then says, Lema misayele. I'm going to give you another marimakom that's a proof for Rava of lo shava ketera v'achal isura. We have a Tosefta. What line? Oh.
With the shochet, he has a knife. He can chef anytime he wants. He has a. I'm just saying, like.
Talk about mitrach lo tarach. You want me to shecht an animal and salt it and.
Understood, but I'm saying, but the point is that to say like.
But
So if you want to go back and say because he's lazy.
Yeah. So mitrach lo tarach is really a fundamental component of lo shava keter v'achal isura, because of course you're right, of course, obviously, and the way that it was structured in the Tosefta was we even have to check the knife for this guy. Now your question is very valid that you asked, like he's not going to check a knife, but he's going to go sell all of his chametz of Pesach. Like that's a great question, and we need to answer that. That's a fair question. But there's definitely a laziness factor that plugs in here. Definitely. You tell that to me. I'm hungry, but there's only a Wendy's. So what? What does it have to do with anything? It's not even in my sphere. Even if it smells good, there's no real temptation for we don't eat starfish. It's treif. It's an Isser Doraisa. I'm asking my own question. He should be puzzled. He's a Rashi did an Isser Doraisa. So how can you be made about believing 1/8 at Eidecha Neman B'Yisur and to tell you that the meat is kosher?
Takes away the Eidecha.
Then what?
Is this guy filming in every other way?
Who cares? As long as his averas are l'teyavon. Our averas are l'teyavon. The averas that we do are l'teyavon. Whatever things we do wrong, it's not because we're not anti, but we do things wrong. I spoke lashon hara. It's not lahafis. It's just.
Yeah, point. This guy's a premier. He goes to Chullin Shabbos, whatever. This is the one thing that he gives in on. I can hear like it's a lot more believable in my mind to say like there's a comfort factor because he's a firm guy. He just doesn't. There's one thing he gives in on, but the guy's like.
I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think you're talking about someone who's pasha not from. I don't think that's what we're talking about.
I think it's what's there.
Yeah, I don't think that's different. The Gemara and Chullin will say that we don't rely on kashrus from people who don't keep Shabbos. We're going to discuss that.
He would then.
Yeah. He's not your Reform Jew in the boonies. That's not what we're talking about. This guy knows Hilchos Shchita, and he's hungry, and he's nichas l'teyavon. Yeah, I don't know where the line is. Other than Shabbos, I don't know where the line is. Do you follow Hilchos Nida? I don't know where the line is, but nevertheless, it's somewhere between. I am. What?
Does at home, but he's literally eating straight and then shechting for us.
It feels like such a steer.
I totally hear.
By the way, I use this as a svara kozeves on the phone when people say, "What do you think about reform moel so and so?" I always say, like, in Jewish law, it doesn't work. You can't be a practitioner of the covenant when you don't keep the covenant. That's the line I say to parents. Right. It's a svara kozeves. It's not. It's not. We actually hold this way by Hilchos Mila that mumar dino kugoy. We do hold that way. We talk do, but my svara is really not accurate. It's really not the right wording. You're just a Russia, or whatever the word is. I don't know how to know what the svara is.
Before you continue, I have a problem going back 30 minutes earlier.
Yes.
20 minutes earlier about eating the bird's head.
Yeah.
Now, in the case where I guess it was a kusi, you want to make sure he's okay, so you take a chunk of his meat
that he shechted.
That he shechted, and he eats it, and you're okay. But how do you eat a bird's head? Look what it is. It's fur, it's feathers, it's a beak. There's nothing to eat. How can you eat a bird's head?
Your youngest child, who humbly sits in front of you, would eat a package of necks that are fried by my mom any day of the week, 10 times a day.
That is not a bird's head.
It's very close.
No,
Maybe they eat birds' brains. I have no idea.
no, it just
I hear what you're saying. I'm curious why this was the
It's the last bird that we eat.
yeah.
But
Or it was a really fat bird and had like some.
no, even the turkey heads, they're like,
There's not a lot of meat on them.
no meat on.
It's not a question of function because it still would not be kosher if the shechita was bad. The question is, why did they pick the head? I think that would be the question. Why did you pick that? Go give a polka. Like, just give me a.
They ask you to do something that's literally impossible to do.
What's impossible?
How can you eat a bird's
You
head?
could take any nibble. Oh, does it say kazayas?
Eating steak, not taking a nibble.
No, but yesterday we said kazayas.
besides
The-
the meat.
When we started today, yeah. When we started today in the Bryce on Gimel Amud Beis, it says chotech kazayis v'nosein lo, and here it doesn't say that. By the Dekuria shel Tziparim, it says kotea rosho shel echad men v'nosein lo. It's a volume problem. I thought the reason why the Gemara said kazayis was because you need a threshold of Isser. Otherwise, the kusi is not scared to eat it. That's not true. You're right. The example is doubly problematic. First of all, mitzias, what is there to eat? Second of all, it's less than the shiur.
Yeah.
Okay, very fair questions. Like an ostrich that isn't kosher. That would be kind of cool. Big Bird?
Big bird.
Oh, come on. That's our childhood, Stan. What are you doing?
You know how many people he could feed?
Oh, you just ruined my whole childhood. That was not nice. It was not nice. All right. Dad, a great question. What's that?
No one's shechting Big Bird.
No one's checking. He's too tall. All right, says the Gemara, let's learn about a second raya for Rava. Let's remember that Rava holds that a mumar le'echol nevelas l'teyavon can do shchita, as long as we check the knife. Lema mesayeh aleha kol shochten ve'afilu kusi ve'afilu arel ve'afilu Yisrael mumar. We have a triple. Anyone can do shchita, even a kusi. Already this is Abaye in Rava land, because Ravashi doesn't hold of this. Ve'afilu arel, even someone who has yet to have a bris. Ve'afilu Yisrael mumar. Now let's analyze. Hi arel hechidami. If we say that this man is an RL, what are we talking about? Let's also distinguish that an RL is a bittul asay, and the others are isurim. It's not the same flaw, right? Anyways, ilema shemesu echav machmas mila. If Rahmana litzlan, a woman bore two children, two boys, and she did a bris for each of them, and they passed away, chas v'shalom, Hashem yirachem. So then the third boy, Ha Yisrael Ma'al Yehu, he's perfect. There, the din is you're not allowed to give that kid a bris. So if you want it, that can't be the case. El Pshita, it must be that he's a mumar la'arelus. He's a mumar to say, I don't do bris milah. And I've met people like this. I don't do bris milah. The kasavar, it must be that we hold mumar ladavar echad lo have mumar lechol torakula, because he's a mumar la'arelus. But the Mishnah says, the Brisa says that the meat is still kosher. He can do shchita. We said akol shochtin, even in Arel. Says the Gemara, if that's true, that he's a mumar ladavar echad, this mumar le'arelus, then what does the next part of that Brisa mean? Ema seifa ve'afilu Yisrael mumar, hai mumar hechidami. I mumar ladavar acher, hai mumar le'arelus. Elalav, it must be that when we say the case of mumar, can't be talking about mumar la'arelus. What instead is it talking about? Mumar la'osodavar. It must be that he's talking about a mumar for eating meat that's kosher. Must be that he's a mumar for that, yet nevertheless the shechita is kosher. Uchadir Rava. What does Rava hold? Mumar ochel nevel satayavon shechita kshera. So there we see our second raya. Says the Gemara 1/3 of the way down low. It's really not true. La'olam emalach mumar la'osodavar lo. It's not true. Maybe we misunderstood. Maybe we would argue with Rava, my time, because kevan dedosh be ketera damila. Once you're eating Wendy's, you're eating Burger King, you're eating Tarfis, then it's ketera damila. You don't care about kashrus anymore. That's how I feel inside. So says the Gemara, Ella, it must be that when we say mumar, it was la'avodas kochavim u'chid Rav Anan. The Amar Rav Anan, Amar Shmuel, this is even harder to understand. Yisrael mumar la'avodas kochavim mutar le'echol mishchitaso. That's what the mumar must have meant in our Mishnah. And we're going to analyze that right now, but that is how the Bryce is concluded. So Gufa, halfway down, Amar Rav Anan, Amar Shmuel, Yisrael Momar la'avodas kochavim. If you have a yid who is tempted by avodas kochavim, mutar le'echol mishchitaso. Why? Here's our text proof. Shekain matzinu beYehoshaphat melech Yehuda shenehene misudas achav. Yehoshaphat was a tzaddik. He was the melech of Yehuda. Achav was a rasha. He was the melech over Yisrael. Shneemar, as the pasuk says, "Vayizbach lo Achav tzonu vakar larov v'la'am asher imo vayisisehu la'alos el Ramos Gilad." So Achav was courting Yehoshaphat to try and get him to go to war with him. It worked, but how did he do so? Through his stomach. And the pasuk is clear. Vayizbach lo Achav tzonu vakar. Achav was a mumar la'avodas kochavim. He had made everybody do avodas kochavim. He was not a good man. Yet Yehoshaphat sat at the same suda as him. Says the Gemara, the Dilma Mizbach Zavach, but Mecha lo Acha. Maybe you ever go to this meal and the food doesn't taste good. You're like, oh, no, I'm okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you prepared the meal. I have GI issues. I just unfortunately can't consume your horrendous food. You make an excuse, says the Gemara, no dice, because the pasuk says, "Vayisisehu ksiv," that he enticed him. So that implies, at least somewhat, it shmecks a little bit, that he actually helped him to eat the food. The Dilma Bidvar, maybe he only convinced him in words to go fight the battle with him, but he didn't eat the meat. Says the Gemara, Ein hasasa bidvarim. We don't convince people with words, we convince people with food. Says the Gemara, Velo, we don't convince with words. I'll show you a case where we do. This is a pasuk where we're talking about someone. It's a pasuk in Dvarim. The pasuk talks about when you're trying to get someone, lemor neilcha v'navda elokim acherim. That's what the pasuk says. Says the Gemara, no, he wasn't convincing him with philosophy. It was be'achilu v'shasiya. Come to shallots with me. Afterwards, we're going to go do markulis and bal pa'or. It's going to be a great evening. So says the Gemara, that can't be. This pasuk is from Eob, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in dialogue with the Satan, and he says to the Satan, you convinced me to do all of this to Eob. He was a tzaddik the whole time. So says the Gemara, L'may l'shayni. You don't ask me questions about the Eibishter. He doesn't have a body. The Dilma Mishta Ishti Mecha Lo Achal. Maybe he only drank the wine, but he says, look, I'm a vegetarian. I don't know. I'm sure Yehoshaphat was not a vegetarian. I'm just guessing. But that's what the Gemara says. Says the Gemara, yeah, but the wine is just as problematic. He's an Oved Kochavim. Says the Gemara, Maishna Shesiya, De Amrino and Mumar La'avodas Kochavim. Lo have mumar lochol kula. You're saying you're allowed to drink the wine, but achila nami motor lavodas kochavim lo have mumar lochol kula. If you can drink the wine, you can eat the meat. If you can't drink the wine, you can't drink the meat. But don't split down the middle. We know we have a din called stam yenam. Says the Gemara, not at that time we didn't. Hachi hashta. Shesiya stam yenanu. Drinking wine of an Oved Kochavim was Stam Yenam. The Adain Lo Nesar Stam Yenam Shalav de Kochavim at that time. That was only by Hillel and Shammai that we had the din of Stam Yenam. By the times of Yehoshaphat, 1,000 years, I don't know how long it was, 1,000 years earlier, there was no din of Stam Yenam. I walked into a bris yesterday. The parents opened a chashav bottle of wine. They took out the cork, laid the cork on top, and showed me the bottle. It was mevoshal. But it didn't matter because I don't touch any of that. I bring my own wine, but they mamish opened the bottle to be menschlach. It was very nice of them. He said to me, but it was mevushal. He knew enough. I'm like, yeah, I know it's the alcohol content in my wine. I'm going. So says the Gemara, there was no stam yenam yen at that point. Avalachila, emalach mumar lavodas kochavim have mumar lachol atar kula. So maybe that's a good answer, that I drank the wine, no isser of stam yenam yet, but I didn't eat the meat. Says the Gemara, a couple of answers. It's not polite. Yehoshaphat sitting at a table of Achav. It's mamish malchus. There's avodim everywhere. It's course after course. They're serving on the finest china. Everything's wonderful. So there's no way he didn't eat meat. Or v'i ba'isema, if you want to say va'izbach ba'isi sehusi b'mahisi. So bizvicha, then maybe in fact he did eat. Says the Gemara. Well, the Dilma Ovadia Zabach. Ovadia was actually working in Achav's cabinet, but Ovadia was a Fruma Yid. So maybe the shchitas that were done on the Achav side were actually done by Ovadia. Says the Gemara, La Rov Ksiv. The pasuk says La Rov. That's the pasuk that we started with in Divrei Yam and Beis, Parak Yud Ches, pasuk Beis. So we see there was too much meat. Ovadia will have a suffix. There's no way he could have ever shechted that much. Maybe it was one of the 7,000 people who Achav didn't convince to do avodah zara. Dichsiv bisharti b'Yisrael shivas alavim kol abrachim asher lo karu lebal v'gomer. We have some Jews who were strong enough; they were the Yosefs of their generation. They didn't do the avodah zara. Says the Gemara, those people were petrified. Are you kidding me? They weren't part of the masses. Tmurei havu mitmurei mi'izevel. They weren't going anywhere near the public space. They certainly weren't doing shchita for Achav. They would have been killed by Izevel in 2 seconds. No way they were in hiding. No way. Maybe there were some people in Achav's cabinet who were taka good. Says Gemara lo salka daitach. Because the pasuk says Moshel makshiv al dvar shekel kol mashar savrashayim. If you have a king, kol mashar savrashayim, he's a bad guy. Everyone's going to be bad who works for him. No one's going to be good. V'dilma gavre de Yehoshaphat nami lo havu ma'alu. Maybe the people of Yehoshaphat were not so from. Zvuach gavre de Achal gavre de Yehoshaphat. Maybe the people who shechted under Achav was eaten by Yehoshaphat. Says the Gemara, Zvuach Ovadia Achal Yehoshaphat. Could it be that Zavuach would have had that food? Lo salka daitach. We already said, Midamoshel makshiv al dvar shekel komer shar savrashayim. Says the Gemara, there's no way. Haladavar emes mishar sav tzadikim. Achav's people were Rishayim, and Yoshav's people were tzadikim. There's no crisscrossing of shchita. Says the Gemara, maybe the meats that Achav ate and his people, they were done by his people, and perhaps Zevuach Gavre de Yoshavat, Achal Yoshavat v'Gavre. That's a good answer. Maybe that's the case. Says the Gemara, no. We know they had a positive relationship. Top of him and Aleph, we're going to push to get to Lema Mesayele in about 10 lines. Lo hava maflig nafshei minei, says the Gemara, no, they were not separate souls, they were brothers. Rashi, lo hava maflig nafshei minei, lo haya Yoshafat nizhar v'nivdal mimenu mishum chashad klal. Alma, afal gav, the mumar lavodas kochavim haya, lo hava mumar l'chol haTorah kula. So now we see that Itaka was eating, and here's our raya. Beautiful. So says the Gemara, Minala. And so let's talk about how we know that this is true. It's like Rus and Nomi language a little bit, where they say, you're going to be like me, my nation is going to be like yours. Well, I actually have another example where there's double language that doesn't mean that way. Our horses are going to be the same. Therefore, it means that when it said Ka'ami, Ka'amech, it doesn't mean that way. It means whatever's going to happen to me is going to happen to you. But it's not about a kinmanship. It's not about friendship. Whatever happens to your horses in battle will happen to mine. We're all going to be the same. But it wasn't a language of kinmanship. It wasn't friendship. They weren't lav dafka. So that can't be a good proof. So again, how do we know that they were so close? We know this from a pasuk from Melachim Perik Aleph Chav Beis pasuk Yud. Umelech Yisrael v'Yoshafat Melech Yehuda Yoshvim Ishal Kisal Melubashim Begadim Begoren Pesach Shar Shomru. They were sitting at the Goren by the threshing floor. My Goren, Ilema Goren Mamish. If you want to say that they were Mamish sitting at the threshing floor, and that's a place where they give out all the holy food, so that can't be. Atu Shar Shomron, going have at the entrance. That wasn't where they put the threshing floors, at the entrance. No, that's not where it is. It's at a different location. That's not a normal place. When you walk in, everybody's sitting there threshing grain. That's not normal. Ela Kigoren. No, they used to sit with each other. The people of Achav and the people of Yehoshaphat used to sit Kigoren, like a semicircle. As you may recall, Ditnan from Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin Haisa Kechatzi Goren Agulak Deshu Roen Zez. They saw each other, they faced each other. In other words, they treated each other like peers. So we therefore see that they were friends, and therefore we have our proof, like we saw earlier in Rashi, quoting from the top of Lohaya Maflig Nafshemine. They were obviously friends and talking and learning. That's how we know that this is a good raya. This is raya number 2. As you can see, we'll see lema mesayele again tomorrow, but we'll have to pick up with that tomorrow. We just are ending 10 lines down on Hamid Aleph, wishing you all a beautiful night.